Football then and now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us. A warm welcome. This is episode 3 of Football Then and Now, a podcast where we're looking at modern football, but we're also looking at nostalgia and not just about football teams and stuff like that. We've got some big content coming up, and my co-host and cousin is here with me today. It is Chris Hume, and we're going to be talking about the title race, which is just set to be the best title race in years in the Premier League, isn't it?
Yeah. Can you tell me last time we had 3 teams vying for that first spot? Because I can't remember for a very long time. You know, back in the day, it was just Man United, wasn't it? Really, through the 90s. Then we had a bit of Arsenal, a bit of Chelsea, but there was never really 3 teams vying for that top spot. Usually, one drops away, don't they? By just after Christmas, and then it's just a 2. And this is really interesting. Because a lot of the 3 teams we're going to talk about, obviously, whoever everyone knows who are in the first 3 places, they keep swapping around, and they've had injuries. All 3 teams have, haven't they? But they keep pushing. They're not dropping back like you would expect them to. I'd say first off, Liverpool, with the amount of injuries they have had, recently, and they haven't dropped back. So it's a good end to the climax of the Premier League, and we don't have to focus at the bottom of the league, like we would normally do being Evertonians.
In all honesty, Chris, I think City should be walking it with that squad. I've got to be honest with you. When you look at it, again, it doesn't always go like that, does it? Look at Leicester. When Tottenham had the better squad, didn't they, essentially? But if you can get playing, it can be done. I know Leicester were a bit of an anomaly because it was never done. You couldn't even say, like, when Blackburn won it, Blackburn threw money at it, didn't they, to get it? They did. But obviously now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking City, you would just think City would be by far and away the best. Even when they've got injuries, he can call on people. There's people there, isn't there? There's the players. They've got so much depth. He's even used academy players as well, in defence to Pep. But I just think it's testament to Liverpool being top at the moment. And Arsenal, I felt Arsenal were dropping off a little bit a couple of months ago. I really thought that was going to be the decline. They've been so solid at the back. They've got 10 clean sheets at present. The goals are back in the midfield as well. I mean, they had over 60 goals in midfield last year in the league. Without a recognised striker as well. Do you know what I mean? Havertz has been playing up front. Jesus is out a lot. I don't think he's prolific. But testament to Mikel Arteta as well.
Well, obviously we'll start with Arsenal. As you just left it there, I do agree. They do need a striker. They do need, obviously, an Erling Haaland's a special talent. So finding someone even at his price, because Man City got him for relatively cheap. It's a price. Obviously, there's other stuff behind in the background, wasn't it? Obviously, they would have had to pay for with Haaland. But if they can find someone similar to that, if they don't, win the league this year, and find someone who can bang in 20, 30 goals a season for them, they'll be, stronger chance. I do agree with Gabriel Jesus. He was never prolific at City, but what he does is he sets the play up, doesn't he? And he puts things together. As well as that, though, as you say, they've got Havertz who can do the same. And I think, their best player, I think, in the squad is Martin Odegaard. I think Odegaard has just come on so much, leap and bounds since Arteta took the job. And he's nurtured him, hasn't he? Arteta being a midfielder himself back in the day, and as we would know as Evertonians, but he's got so much more out of him. And I think he works well when he's got a good, like a DM at a Tom's party, sort of, or now Declan Rice behind him, so he can move forward and break down defenses. Then you've obviously got Eddie Nketiah, who's obviously try to come in every now and again for Arsenal. He's a decent talent. I think he'd do well probably in the lower half of the Premier League for the clubs. We probably would do him because we need a striker that can score goals. But they're a solid team. Gabriel at the back. Obviously, we were interested in him that year. He went to Arsenal, but fantastic, left-sided. And you just got to look all around what Arteta's built with Arsenal. It's more youth now, isn't it? It's going back to when Wenger obviously he's not going to have the Patrick Vieira's, the Thierry Henry's, Bergkamps and stuff like that. But he started bringing the youth through, didn't he, and buying younger players. And you can see that Arteta now is, he's got what he wants other than a striker, but he's got a solid base, hasn't he? If you look for defence, midfield, and then just that thing that eludes them, obviously going in the summer, that'll be hopefully what they look for. But as you said, they're really good.
Very good, very good. I think, the one player, it's in his, I was going to say in his arsenal, it's in his locker, pace and finishing. I would put Bukayo Saka as the most informed player in the league at the moment. Okay. He's been absolutely on fire. And that's going up against the likes of Haaland, Phil Foden, Salah. I would put Saka at the tippy top in terms of what he's been doing week in, week out. In more recent games, he has been absolutely fantastic. You could watch tape on him as the opposition and teams still can't suss it when he cuts in on that right side. He's been absolutely brilliant, Chris. And it's been amazing. I really thought they'd fallen by the wayside, Arsenal, a couple of months ago, maybe just before Christmas.
Right.
It's been brilliant. It's been absolutely brilliant. What do you make of Liverpool? Also, do you think he rested Salah in the cup final, knowing he needed him for Europa League and the league last weekend? Because I think that was done purposely. I think he knew those young lads could do it in the cup final last week for him.
It's a hard one as well because Salah's played a lot of football, hasn't he? You got to look at a lot of football before the AFCON, and then he went to the AFCON, didn't he? And then it's thrusted straight back into the Premier League. I think, the cup game, I don't think Klopp was worried. And you alluded to the youth that Klopp does play in cup games. Obviously, he didn't have much of an option. His first team was in the cup final, did he, against Chelsea, because a lot of them are out injured. But you've got to tip your hat to what Klopp's done, not just with the first team, but for the players that are coming up in Liverpool, and how they look good and ready. Maybe not just for the Premier League, but if they were going to the Championship, what have you, but they look good and ready. Some youth players you can see that come up and they play them, don't they? And they're not ready yet. But every play I saw that Liverpool, play that put on against Chelsea last Sunday, they all look good, Stuart. And it pains me to say it as probably much as you do, being an Evertonian, but they've got everything sorted from back to front. But yeah, going back to your question, Salah's important, isn't he? And I think maybe giving him a couple of games off would probably suit them with the amount of games now they're going to have to go into, if you say Europa League and the Premier League. I think what will be 13 games left of the Premier League, and then you've got maybe 4 more games in the Europa League, maybe a bit more. Yeah, they need to rest him, and if they want to go for the title, you want your best players. Obviously, I know a lot of them are out, but Salah's so influential, like Saka is to Arsenal. So yeah, I think it was probably the best option.
I think now, obviously, going into City a little bit, because we've spoken about Liverpool and Arsenal and a bit of depth there. I think with City, I think they should be walking it, in my opinion. I've got to be honest. Now, I got told by our friend Dan, well, we've had injuries. I beg to differ. He said the squad, we've got one of the smallest squads as well. He knows his club. I'm not knocking him. I beg to differ. And also, he's brought people through like Oscar Bob. He's been bringing academy players through as much as they've thrown a lot of money at it. But in my opinion, Chris, City should be flying up there and should have a cushion. They haven't, which makes it more exciting for us as neutrals, But how do you feel with City? Do you think along the same lines as me, where they should be flying, or do you just think it's testament to how well Liverpool and Arsenal have done this year?
I think it's a testament with Arsenal and Liverpool that they've pushed City, and I think they're usually used to Liverpool pushing them, aren't they? They're not used to 2 other teams going for it. And don't forget, all 3 teams have slipped up this season more so than normally. So they've let each other back in, haven't they? Every other month or so, should we say? And they've let themselves, get back into the title race after losing when you think they might slip out. When it comes to Man City, and good old Dan saying about they've had injuries, I'd like to question that into a point where do you want to look at, like, say, Liverpool, who've had majority of their first team out injured and haven't got the same bench as Man City. You can recall on, a Doku, if Grealish is injured, you've got all those different players that they can bring through. And as you say about the youth, Oscar Bob, they've got a hell of a good youth system at Man City themselves. You look at Doyle at Leicester, another good one that they got coming through that I'd imagine would be Premiership ready by next season. I think they should be walking it in some way, and not as much as I think that they've been pushed well deservedly by Arsenal and Liverpool. But you look at their squad. If Haaland's injured, you've got Alvarez. You've got all these tangibles. They've got so many good players. Once one player's gone, they can fit that in there. De Bruyne is injured, Foden goes straight in there.
Mm-hmm.
Rodri's the one I think is the most difficult one in that team that you have to.
Far and away the most integral player in that team. Take KDB out of it for a minute. He is unreal. Got to see him in person last season. Him and Gundogan ran the middle against us. We were awful. But testament to those guys, because you're waiting for Haaland when you go and watch City. And it was Rodri and Gundogan that ran the game in the middle, mate. They were absolutely brilliant. Gundogan with the finishes. Never understood why he was allowed to go, personally. He was probably their best player with Rodri last year. One of them. Separate thing for a separate day, though, Chris. But yeah, going back to Rodri, what is it about Rodri for you that you love about him?
The mind, Stuart. The amount of times, obviously, I've watched City, and he can control the centre of the park so easily. But it's the IQ of breaking up play. When he could be under pressure, but knowing like where the ball's going to go from his foot to the other player, it's just so makes it look so easy in that role. We see a lot of defensive midfielders come and go in this league, but I think he's probably one of the best I've seen to ever come to the Premier League. Like, his football IQ is just absolutely fantastic. You know what I mean? When do you see players go past him? Hardly ever. Okay, he's not got pace and stuff like that, but it's the IQ.
Mm-hmm.
He knows when to go. To intercept the football or to tackle someone. He just knows. Like I say, his array of passing is fantastic. And to boot Stuart, he can put a screamer in one, every now and again.
Typified against Inter in the final. This past May, where it was looking like it was going to, it could have potentially gone to penalties that game, and he managed to find one, an absolute thunderbolt late on, wasn't it? And you know what, mate? Like you say, the way it's changed that role, CDM. You look back at CDMs; they were a lot smaller in stature years ago, weren't they? Claude Makelele, probably one of the best.
Jeremy and stuff like that.
They were smaller guys. He's so big and strong that, like you say, and the IQ, and he doesn't necessarily need pace, does he? Because he's one step ahead.
You don't, when you go back and look at, Spanish international teams, they didn't, I know they had Xavi and Iniesta, and they were small CDMs, but they could also play attacking midfield, couldn't they? But they weren't blessed with pace, but they know how to use a football, and I find it proud, that they thought that Paul Scholes was like someone they looked up to. But I always thought English side of football always made the best CDMs. Just, there was no nonsense, was there? There was hard tackling. You know what I mean? You'd make sure when you get that ball, the people were like, right, I don't want to run at him with the ball now, yeah? And I always thought that was what was pure about the English game, is that they had this rough and ready CDMs. But then you look at Rodri, and I feel like you can see both elements of the sort of the flary Spanish sort of side of him, but the British powerhouse, take no nonsense. Obviously he's not flying into tackles. We're not talking about back in 90s Premier League.
No, of course not.
But you can see that the mixture of the styles, he's like all in one, and I think that's another rarity. And hats off to Pep finding him in the Spanish league. How Real Madrid and Barcelona didn't even look at him before he left.
You thought you thought they'd come a calling first, wouldn't you, mate? Now, just to move us along, just to close it, rather than us going through 12, 13 games that they've got,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put up the next 5 games, and I'm gonna do it in order of where they are on the table. So we'll look at Liverpool first, and we'll look at their next 5. And I think this is correct. This graphic, yes, it is. So they got Forest away. It can be a tricky place to go. Then it's the big one on the 10th. They've got City, Brighton at home. You'd expect them. They'll win it, won't they? They'll win it at home, especially if he's got the players back. Liverpool, Sheffield United, that's only going one way. United away. So I've got three out the 5 that I'm certain they'll take 9 from. It's just what will they take against City and United? What do you think?
Well, you go back now. Like Liverpool have always beaten City at Anfield, minus that one season where they had a really, really dreadful run at Anfield. God bless them. We even got a win there as well. It took us how many years? But besides that, because, that was just a one-off. It was COVID, wasn't it? I think it was just a bit weird for everybody back then. They always still beat Man City at Anfield. It's always a tight game, but they always come out on top. And I'd probably stick to say that Liverpool will beat City on the 10th.
Okay. Hey, we might have to put a bet on that, mate.
Okay. I agree with you with the other fixtures.
Of course.
The Man United-Liverpool one, I think they'll beat Man United as well, because Man United are very hit and miss. And if Liverpool have got their players back, which I'm hopefully they are, got everyone back, or the majority of them back by then, they're going to become a force, aren't they?
How many points, just before I move on to City, you give me a points total you think they'll take from them 5, just quickly?
I think they might. They could slip up at Forest, but they're known for last minute goals, or good old VAR helping them out, haven't they? So, I'm going for a clean sweep for Liverpool there.
Which it's not just about winning the home games now, getting the title. You've got to go away and do it, haven't you?
They're doing it last minute, aren't they?
Years ago, if you were winning at home, you could pick draws up away.
Yeah.
It's just because it's so tight up there, you're going to have to win away. You have to get results away now. Moving on, I'll just go over to City, just because obviously time constraints on this.
Yeah.
So it's Arsenal Villa, then it's Wolves Arsenal, then it's Spurs Arsenal, Arsenal Bournemouth, United Arsenal, and Arsenal Everton, which I think that's wrong actually.
That's last day of the season.
Right. Wait a minute. Here we go. Sorry, Chris. Here we go. So right. Correction. Sheffield United Arsenal, Arsenal Brentford, City Arsenal, Arsenal Luton, Brighton Arsenal. If I'm looking at that, I'm saying Arsenal can win 4 out of the 5 there, and maybe get something at City.
They got an easier run in Liverpool, and I give Liverpool a clean sweep there. The thing is obviously Sheffield United will, unfortunately for them, they're finished, they're done. Brentford aren't having a very good season. They're struggling, aren't they?
I did not expect them to be down there. I know when Bueno's out, Tony they knew about. Neil Maupay's actually scored goals there. I can't believe it.
No, forget him.
That's a story for another day, innit? But they shouldn't be where they are. But you'd expect them. If they're at home to them, they're going to win, aren't they?
They say the 2 games out there that sort of makes me wonder about Arsenal. It's the City and the Brighton one, because Brighton had a really good. Every time they played Arsenal at their place, they've hammered them, haven't they? Well, not hammered them, but they've got the better of them. And it seems to me like Brighton are like Arsenal's bogey team in the last couple of years, anyway. But then again, Brighton are one of them where you don't know which team's showing up.
One week they can be fantastic under him, and he's a fantastic manager. Don't agree with the links to Liverpool. He's not ready for that. No fucking chance. But I think, and I'm not knocking him. He needs longer. He needs longer at Brighton. Yeah. Look what happened with Potter. It don't necessarily work, does it? But I'm coming away. I apologise. I'm coming away. The Brighton one is a sticky one, isn't it? For Arsenal.
I think they get 3. They'll get. It's hard. But they'll definitely get 3 wins. Right. They'll definitely beat Sheffield United. They'll definitely beat Brentford. They'll definitely beat Luton. If it was away against Luton, I'd be a bit more trickier.
Absolutely.
But, Luton away isn't very. They're not very good anyway. Other than beating us twice. The City one's going to be the pivotal one. Like I think Liverpool and City, and then Man City and Arsenal. That's going to be the two pivotal games here because we're going to see who can run away with it a bit more and get a bit of space between each other. But I think Arsenal probably lose City in that one. I don't think Arsenal go to Man City and play as well.
So
they're at the Emirates. At the Emirates, they're really good against City. But I think when City play at home, they're a different animal.
So you've got Liverpool up to now in the next 5 that they've got a better run of games.
Yeah, I think Liverpool don't. You know what I mean? Where Arsenal could drop a point here, Liverpool are banging them in last minute, aren't they? You know what I mean? I think everyone's, no matter how many injuries they got, everyone's on the same hymn sheet, aren't they? With Liverpool, not saying they aren't with Arsenal, but I don't think Arsenal have had that sort of back and forth with City like Liverpool have. Liverpool obviously already know how to go at City, don't they? You know what I mean? They've had that rivalry for the last couple of years against City.
So
but I think
if we have a look at City, if I've got the correct one, it's put all these in the wrong order on it when I've loaded them in. And it's not there. And I thought it was.
So you got
there we go. Yeah, sorry. Yep. So Man City United this Sunday. That's a given for me because I just can't see. United had hit a bit of form and then they crashed against Fulham. So I've got 3 points there for City. What do you think?
Do you know what? The beginning of March is really tough for Man City there, isn't it? The Manchester derby, Liverpool, then Arsenal, Villa. You know what I memean? Having an excellent season
on their day, mate. They can do it. What Unai Emery's managed to do, and he hasn't spent a fortune, has he? He's just like he strengthened all areas. I find, I'm with you, mate. It's on paper those 5, Palace.
I think it'll be Palace.
Them 4. That is the hardest 4, isn't it? Out of everyone's run-ins.
Let's just say now, we'll hypothetically say this now. If City go on a run, one slip up against Liverpool, I think if they only lose to Liverpool in this whole fixture month here now in March, and they go on a run, I worry for Liverpool and Arsenal then because you know exactly what City can do when they go on a run.
Absolutely. If he gets them firing on all cylinders, we know they're like a juggernaut, aren't they? Like a freight train. They will not look back. I think with City, you can always get a goal, though, if your tactics are correct, the way they play. Teams, look at Wolves and teams where they've lost points. There is games there. You can get, if you've got enough, if you've got someone who's ruthless enough in front of goal, they're susceptible at the back, the way they play. But we've known that for years, haven't we?
Yeah, well, yeah. There's only certain teams that can do that to them, and Liverpool are definitely one of them that can really, it goes both ways, doesn't it, with City and Liverpool? One of them gets the better of each other and vice versa. But Liverpool seem to me like they are the team that know what to do with that style. Obviously they've got the pace, haven't they, as well, that, City can struggle against going backwards. But I think... I don't know. You see, it's very difficult. You've all got quite tough ones, but I'd say, the way Liverpool, and we know what Liverpool can do, and this is not me being, a bit of blue, but that they get these last minute goals, and that they keep going and pushing. Not saying Arsenal or City don't do that, but there's something about Liverpool that they always seem to pull it out the bag.
Yeah. I think you've been quite balanced, to be fair to you. I've got to be fair to you, mate. I think you've had, quite neutral about it all.
Well, I got to be. I can't put the Everton hat on because otherwise, if we're sitting Evertonians, we just obliterate Liverpool immediately.
This is it. If I had to pressure now, I am going for Liverpool by May 19th, which is the last game of the season. For some reason, I just feel Liverpool are going to do it. I really do. I just think they're going to find it and they're going to do it because I think City can lose games. It's happened quite more frequently than it normally does.
I think that in the last 2 seasons more so, yeah. And I think Arsenal acceptable as well to losing games where, yeah, Liverpool are as well. I'm not saying they're invincible, but they seem to sort of like be, 1-0 down like they were Luton for ages, and all of a sudden, boom, pull it back and then score again. And, and you got to give props to Klopp. And I know it's his last season, and I think, him winning the cup on the weekend and him if they were to win the Premier League, that'd be a great bow out for Klopp. It'd be amazing for Liverpool fans, not so much for us. But I'd probably say not Arsenal this season. I think
what makes you think that? Is that not having a recognised
I think the striker situation comes into play. Do you know what? If you're playing like, say how we set up and we sit really tight, don't we, at the back? And sometimes teams can really frustrate the top 4 teams when they can't break you down. I mean, you got Erling Haaland then out of the blue just gets in the way and scores a goal. Do you know what I mean? And I like Gabriel and I like I say Odegaard, Saka. But if you start man-to-man marking and really sitting on them, who obviously Martinelli as well. Sorry,
Martinelli being back as well because he was out.
I like him as well.
It's been noticeable in terms of attack, especially on that left side. It's so noticeable. I don't think he's scoring as much as he did last season. Whether that's coming back off the injury, but he's prevalent in games, isn't he? He's a nightmare to defend against.
But I don't think they don't have that vocal point. You know what? You look at Haaland, but you look at Liverpool and they've got Salah. Who just, I mean, I know what you say about Saka, but Salah's just something else. But then you've got Nunez, who's a pain in the arse. Jota, who, for a small guy, pops up quite a fair bit. It reminds me a lot of Tim Cahill with the amount of headers, he gets in. They've got such a mixture of up front where there is a vocal point.
Absolutely.
Arsenal don't have that vocal point just yet. So I think, a third place, it might sound crap to the Arsenal fans at the moment, but I think that would be great because going forward by a striker, and I think keep hold of the best players, they'll be fine next season. I think they will push even harder so in the last 2. I do definitely think it's going down to Liverpool and Man City.
Who, before we finish this, who? I want an answer. I'm pressing you.
You never answered this when I was on Big Fight Weekly.
I know, but it's different with the football.
I'm going to still go City.
Okay, it's good that we've gone for different ones. It's good.
I think they're going to go on a run, minus what happens at Anfield, but they're going to go on a run. And when they're going on a run, they don't stop, Stuart. They don't get beaten. They don't drop points. Liverpool might possibly in that time.
Especially Jota's out for a while as well.
Yeah.
And he's been brilliant. But he, again, injury prone. Chris, I just want to say before we close out episode 3, thank you to Apple Podcasts football chart in Australia. We peaked at 64 after 4 or 5 days as a show. Bearing in mind, there's Aussie Rules Football and NFL podcasts in that chart. It's not just soccer football. So we were related with that. And then this week, Apple Podcasts Football Great Britain, we were 140th, was it? 130th, something like that, in the top 250. So well done, mate. Well done. We were made up with that.
On to you as well. On to you. We said at the beginning, didn't we, when we started this, for an interest, and we see if we can break into, the UK one for us because, it's so football orientated and there's so many podcasts out there, not just, people do me and you, but there's actual, football teams podcasts. So to even break into the UK, I was buzzing, and I'm sure you were as well. And long live that, because we're here to stay. So, we're going to keep going at that chart.
Fantastic. So, we look forward to the title race. We'll probably come back in about the title race when there's 5 or 6 to go in April. I think we'll just come back and see what's going on with that. Episode 4, we've had a lot of comments, which we're obviously going to do. Episode 4, we're going to record it, is about players when you've been to watch your team and it's players from the opposition that have just blown you away. I've got a lot of comments that we've got to come into that, which I think will fuel it a bit more than me and you said, we like this one, that one. So, that'll be episode 4. And just a big, big thank you to our listeners and our viewers
definitely.
And our viewers who didn't expect to chart so early on. And we'll see you for episode 4 very, very soon.
Ciao.
Football then and now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us.